Welcome to Scoop World Order. I hope you guys are having a great Wednesday. We are grinding along. We have big Cavs game tonight. Maybe the worst lineup I've ever seen in a playoff team going against the Celtics, who look very formidable and elite. We're going to get to what Ryan Day said today. Ryan Day named some underrated stars, some guys we've been talking about a lot on this program. And Ryan Day validates everything we say because we've got good eyes and ears inside the Woody Hayes. So it's really exciting to hear some of these guys get a little bit of love because those aren't always throwaways. We got a phenom that Brian Hartline offered who is transferring to IMG. He is in Nevada now. He is a freaky wide receiver, eighth grader. Kind of crazy for Brian to go early on a guy like that. But if Brian goes on him, it's because he's a stud and he's got a lot of upside. So he's a speed demon for a young kid, man. He's going to be one of those guys where as you get older, you generally don't get slower. And this kid's already a burner as an eighth grader. So he's going to be freaky fast as he develops and turns into a young man. So we're going to get into all that and take your questions and your super chats. As always, we appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy the show, again, we appreciate you guys taking care of our veterans, our first responders via Pay It Forward, via our super chat program. If you guys have a question, and you guys always have the greatest questions, some of the smartest, maybe the smartest crew of people on YouTube. And again, if you guys are watching this on Facebook or on X, consider watching us on YouTube because on YouTube we have a very fun chat. We have a lot of people that are on this chat going crazy. It's a very entertaining, fun crew of people. Shout out to the Scoop 13 text thread. But we just appreciate you guys so much for being on here each and every night, keeping it lively. Thank you to our moderators as well. You guys know who you are. We appreciate you each and every night. But this is going to be a big show because you guys make it one as always as we go into the Cavs game. But we appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Get an alert every time we go live, which is generally around 7 o'clock. There might be, if there is a change, we usually try to tell you the night before so you guys can be ready to go when we do go live. Again, shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. And in the comments and in the chat, I want to hear who is going to be your underrated breakout star. Do not say Trey Henderson or Quinshon Judkins or, I mean, you can't really say J.J. Smith. Who's the guy who's under the radar that you think is going to break out? Ryan Day named some names, some guys that have played a lot of football, some that haven't. Really excited to get into that with my good friend at Nevadabuck. Nevada, some of our favorites. I know Jordan Hancock is one of your favorite players on the entire team. Got a lot of love from Ryan today when he was doing some of his media work. What were your thoughts on that? Because again, when Ryan says certain things, it's not because he's just drawing a name out of a hat and he's saying, I'm going to talk about Julian Sain today or Arvell Reese today or Jordan Hancock today. It's because they've earned it. And he wants the world to know how good they are. But what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought that, as you mentioned, these are guys that we've been hearing a lot of good things about, and we've been talking a lot. We've been talking a lot about them here at BuckeyeScoop.com, talking about on this podcast. So it's always nice to kind of hear your stuff validated by the head coach. But when you hear guys like Ty Hamilton and Jordan Hancock, you mentioned specifically by Ryan Day, it just speaks to how deep this defense is and how good this defense is, because those aren't the household names. Those aren't the Jack and JT and Ty Leaks and Denzels and Caleb Downs. These are, I won't say they're like secondary guys, but they're guys not that are on the tip of your tongue, and they're the first guys that he's talking about. We've been hearing that. We've been hearing Ty Hamilton is going to be a load. That's one of the reasons why I think Ohio State's got the best defensive line in the country, bar none. And Jordan is just a playmaker, just an absolute playmaker. You've got just an abundance of talent in the defensive backfield, but he's a guy that's always around the ball. And I think it's one of the reasons why Jim Knowles is going to be willing to take more chances, blitz more, bring more pressure. Is he's got absolute confidence in the defensive backfield with all those guys, but specifically with Hancock. He's a guy that will he's going to be a star by the end of the year if he's not a star already, and a guy that I'm really excited to see.
I think Jordan Hancock he's overshadowed a little bit because Denzel Burke's been so good. And plus he plays the outside corner position, which is seen as more glamorous than the nickel spot. Jordan Hancock, I think, is a top 30-ish, 35-ish corner in the country. I think he's that good. He's a guy that's going to play a long time in the NFL. Nickel's a really tough position to play. I mean, I'm telling you, you're going against guys that are really quick. There's a lot of tough coverages. It's kind of like you're playing linebacker, but you're a little guy. But you have to cover and you have to be up and run support constantly because you're kind of that third guy that used to be the same linebacker. Now they're relying on you. And Jordan's physical, which is good. I mean, you need to be to play nickel. I think nickel's a very difficult position to play. It's much different than corner. Corner, obviously, just pure, predominantly man. Obviously, we play some zone, but we like to play a lot of man. And I'm just telling you, like nickel's it's a totally different beast when you're in kind of the muck, a lot closer to the box than the traditional corners are. I think that a guy, obviously, that we've been talking about a lot is Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese is a hammer, a thumper, a guy that's a couple triple cheeseburgers away from being a defensive end. But I think that when Ryan gives him some love and talks about him, it shows the kid surging. It shows that the kid, I think, has a lot of upside. He wasn't, generally regarded as a 5-star-ish type kid. He was a lower rated kid, but he's a Glenville kid, and we've got some good Glenville kids now between him and Bryce West. But I think it's going to be interesting to see the kind of role that he can carve out because, he's he's a young guy. He hasn't played much, but neither is CJ Hicks or Sonny Styles. But those guys get the lion's share of the headlines just because of how highly they were recruited to 5-star guys. So people naturally talk about them more as people to start for the role. But I think Arvell's going to have a role. And I think that, it starts with dominating on special teams. It starts with being a guy that could play rundowns. Because, again, I say this every single show, but I can't believe they're playing a 17-game season. And these games are exceptionally difficult at the end of the season. Because, I mean, again, the Big Ten championship game, it goes from playing Iowa or Purdue or Northwestern to playing Oregon, which is, and if Washington gets back to where they were last year, then you're playing a team like that. You're going to be playing like a real team, or Michigan again. I mean, you're going to be playing like a real team at the end, as opposed to we've had like the luck of the draw where we've come out of the East, and the East has been 10 times harder to win than the West. So after you beat Michigan, you got to play Purdue or Northwestern or whoever, and it's been a lot better for us to launch us off into the playoffs. But I think that he talked a lot about strength and conditioning. I'm telling you guys, like, this is the time of the year where the team is made. Summer conditioning sucks. It is like the worst time of the year because you do a lot of running, a lot of conditioning, and again, that's part of the kind of the crucible. This is kind of like our hell week, like the SEALs go through. Like we get broke off pretty good. And I mean, Mickey, it's just always been a tradition at Ohio State. Like you're gonna do a lot of running in the summer, and for big guys like me, like we all hated running just because we're not built to run long distances, but we had to run long distances. But I love hearing reports of who's really taken to it because you can go into every workout with a mentality of either being a survivalist or being a guy who's got to like crush it, And again, there's sometimes where the guys who really push themselves, at the end of a conditioning run, they might look worse because they ran so hard early on, so they got tired. They didn't save themselves. Because it's always funny because I'd always tell these guys, I'm like, look, push yourself as hard as you can on every sprint. Don't just coast through it, and you'll gain your gas tank will gain more. Your cardio will be better, as opposed to guys that just kind of jog everything or just barely make the time. So I used to tell guys, just kill it, screw it. If you fall out because you're going like so hard, then I'm good with that because guys will get in better shape and you can always cardio these guys. Like in the Woody Hayes, there are so many machines you can use to work your cardio between the Stairmaster. We have like 4 different types of treadmills. We have a zero gravity treadmill. We have a water treadmill, which for big guys is the greatest thing ever invented. And I don't know if the big guys use it as much as I do, but I used to run on that thing every day. And it was awesome because you could run really hard and you didn't really get any wear and tear on your legs, your hamstrings. Your legs weren't sore after, which was amazing, but it would gut you. Like, I mean, you would be completely out of gas. You'd be winded when you were done, but then the next day, like your legs felt great. So that's a big difference between running on turf and grass. So I'm excited to hear about summer conditioning. Nevada, what are some of the things that you want to hear about during summer conditioning? Because I always love hearing about who came back in shape, who's a little heavy, who's a little lethargic, because I think it just speaks to the overall dedication of these guys. Because guys like Marvin Harrison are never going to be out of shape. They're never going to be not working. But some guys, when it's time to take time off, man, they take time off. And it's almost hilarious to me how some of these guys come back. But what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I just thought today was just a reminder, if we didn't need another reminder, of the importance of strength and conditioning. And I think people take strength and conditioning as kind of a given. It's like, oh, Ohio State's going to have great strength and conditioning. But I mean, you have to remember when Urban Meyer was hired, like his first call was Mickey. Before anybody else, it was Mickey Marotti. That was the one guy that he wanted before Pantoni, before Voltolini, before anybody else. It was Mickey Marotti. And I think, when you look at it, so you say, well, what's the significance of that? Well, one, it's really good that we have him and that he's here and that he's staying. He's kind of the godfather of strength and conditioning for Ohio State. But two, when you discuss our rival, I mean, when Michigan lost their strength and conditioning coach, that was a huge loss for them. And it wasn't just another coach. It wasn't a pass rushing specialist. It wasn't an analyst. This is their strength and conditioning guy. And I just thought, when Ryan Day mentioned that, I was just like, man, it's sure nice to be in the position that we have, that we've got a guy that's been established there, been there for years and years. And look at Michigan. Michigan's picking up all the pieces, having to do it all over again in terms of trying to build their strength and conditioning program from the ground up. In addition to losing 7 to the other 10 accountable coaches, but it just reminded me how lucky we are to have Mickey. And I mean, obviously, I could go through the list of players. I could go through offensive linemen that we're looking at, or the tight ends, or how the quarterback looks, or whatever it is. But I just count on all these guys are going to be in great shape. And I love hearing about guys like Arvil Reese, because I agree. I think Arvil Reese his future is a defensive end. When I see him, he looks massive to me. And in the old days, you could have a massive linebacker. You could have an Andy Katzenmoyer, or you could have a Tom Kuzner, or some big bulked up guy there with the neck roll and everything. I don't know if you can have that anymore in today's college football. I think that they've got to be smaller. So I think for Reese, Reese's future is at defensive end. He's a guy that we love. I love those Glenville kids, but I love him especially. And it was nice to hear him get some recognition today from Ryan Day.
I think that, the hardest part about, because Andy was a different cat. Obviously, Andy Katzenmoyer, and that wasn't me being funny, but literally, he could run well enough to play today. But a lot of the old guys that we had, they could, old Schlegels when he was heavy, I don't think he could run. He would have had to have lost 30 pounds to play in today's game. And I love Anthony Schlegel. I think he's great. But, he would be the first guy to say that. I mean, if you look at him when he played versus today, I mean, he's probably down at least 40 pounds, at least. So I think that today's Schlegels would be much more fit, but he just he was slow, and he knew that. I mean, that was one of his biggest deficiencies, but he was tough as nails and smart and just a great player. But that was his deficiency. And in the modern times, man, it's if you can't move, it's hard. It's you look at every sport and the athleticism has just skyrocketed across the board. You watch the NBA, you watch Nikola Jokic, and he brings the ball up the court. He shoots threes. I don't know how some of the old posts, like Chris Dudley, could have defended a guy like Nikola Jokic, because nobody can defend that guy anymore, because these guys can all shoot threes, and they're all a lot more mobile than they used to be. So I think it's going to be exciting to see what these guys can do. Nevada, we had a very interesting offer from Brian Hartline to an 8th grader, and this kid is an absolute freak of nature. Kid named Eric McFarland. He is 5'8", 170, which is very, very small, but he's also very, very young. Class of 2028, transferred to IMG. But if Brian Hartline's going this early on a kid, this kid's got to be that dude, because that isn't a typical Brian Hartline kind of move to go after a kid who's this young. But LSU's gone on him. He's going to have every school by the end of the summer. I'm sure he'll go to camp and just shred people. But what's your reaction when you hear Brian Hartline go on an 8th grade wide receiver? How good do you think this kid has to be?
Well, look, I checked with my Vegas people, and they're like, this kid was timed at 4.57 in the 40 in 8th grade, which I don't think I've ever heard of something like that. That just seems like an absurd number. And they insist that that's accurate. So you're talking about speed to burn, a kid that's going to get bigger from a big family. So there's no reason to believe that he's not going to, as he's, gets into 9th grade, gets in 10th grade, he's not going to continue to grow. But I just, you watch him play, and on a team of fast guys, in settings where everybody can run, this guy's just different. I mean, he's got a different kind of burst. He's got a different kind of acceleration. And obviously, that's what Brian Hartline was looking at when they offered him, because Brian does not throw. The last time that they were talking about some young guy, it was Chris Henry, And this kid is definitely Chris Henry-esque in terms of his ability, and maybe even has a little bit more top end speed than Chris Henry. As hard as that is to believe, but this kid can really scoot.
Yeah, and again, it's weird because you say, oh well, 5'8", a kid who's 5'8", 170 running a 4.56, like that does you'd think like a guy if that guy's in the NFL, he's running a 4.2 flat because little guys, but like you know when a kid's that young and he's that fast, like guys that are like this don't get slower. They get way faster. This guy's probably never even touched a weight in his life. I mean, in eighth grade, most of those kids aren't lifting. I mean, he probably has done some speed training. Maybe, again, I don't know his background. I don't know his parental situation. I don't know if he has a speed trainer, but most eighth graders aren't like gym rats yet. They're not in training yet. So when this guy goes to IMG and starts getting trained up, like it's going to be insane how fast this kid becomes because I see the natural progression. I mean, I always just look at my own personal progression. Like I was a sophomore and I was like God, I was a bean. I was like 6'4", 210, and I ran like a 5.40, you know, which is slow as dirt. Or five, I think I might have run like a 5.2 or something. And then my junior year, I got down to a 5 flat. Then my senior year, I got down to 4.75 when I was 260 and I was 6'5", and and again, I gained 50 pounds and I got way faster because you start squatting heavier, you start doing your explosive lifts like your power cleans and that type of stuff, put force on the ground, and you just become more coordinated. I mean, you just naturally just grow. You hit puberty and away you go. But I this kid's gonna be a freak. I mean, if he's running that fast already, he's gonna be like a 4.4, 4.3 guy, and I'm excited about that. Like I said, I always love seeing these kinds of kids. I'll put on his little goofy 7-on-7 video because again, this kid doesn't have any tape because he's because he's so young. He's all we could find was 7-on-7. But again, I am a big proponent of 7-on-7. I know some people hate it, and I'm glad that Ohio kids can play in it now. But this is kind of what a 7-on-7 tournament looks like. It's kind of interesting these guys aren't wearing the helmets because, and maybe they have to put the helmets on after the game starts. But they often wear the soft caps out. There they are. They got or that kid might just have a rag on, but they all have to usually wear these soft caps because they're all there was a kid life flighted out of one of these things because they ran head to head, and let me see if I can find him actually doing something. Yeah, so again, you can see the speed, you can see the explosion. I know he's not in pads. I know this isn't physicality, but again, and again, I don't know the level of competition. I don't know who he's going against, but this kid as an eighth grader, he doesn't look like an eighth grader. This kid looks like a junior in high school. So again, imagine what this kid's gonna look like in 2 years or even 3 years. He could be baby Tyreek Hill at that point. So, but yeah, I love watching this stuff. I love going to these things because these things they're a riot, man. I mean, it is nonstop trash talk, nonstop entertainment, and again, I think that this is one of the best things. Any kid that has to catch the ball, if you're a tight end or a wide receiver, or you're a cover guy, if you're a linebacker, a safety, a corner, this is the best stuff in the world because there is no hiding in 7-on-7. And this is what, we got JJ Smith from, Brandon Ennis, South Florida Express. And those kids, like, they're working in the winter. In Ohio forever, when our kids, they finally passed the law, a lot of these guys to do 7-on-7. Now these guys could actually, participate in this stuff. And again, these are good reps. I mean, you're going against, usually good teams. And, the OT7 championships are in Tampa in, 3 weeks. And that'll be, South Florida Express, Trillionaire. It'll be all the top schools throughout the country, or all the top teams throughout the country, and they'll have players going to Bama, Georgia, Florida, Ohio State, because they're nasty with it. I mean, these kids are they're competitive, and again, when you watch Ennis and JJ and those guys, they're not out there just messing around. They want to win every one of these reps and every one of these games, and so when they show up to Ohio State, they're not scared of anything because this is they run 7-on-7 at Ohio State. It's they're like, well, that's old hat. We've done that a million times. Nevada, I know 7-on-7 is very polarizing. I love it. I love when we get kids from it because I feel like those kids are ready to contribute and they're not scared of anything. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, if you have not been to a 7-on-7, you have to go. It is, I think it's one of the great, undervalued things out there because it's so much fun. It's like a rock concert. It's all passing. It's all offense. It's the best parts of the games. You get to see the quarterbacks and the wide receivers go up against the cornerbacks and the safeties, and You just great wide open play. You've got the money ball. You've got, I mean, it's just so much fun to watch. But I'm just glad Ohio's got, in kind of embracing 7-on-7 because I felt for a long time that we were behind the eight ball in terms of not doing that. And now, like I said, I'm excited to see that Ohio's going to do it. I think some of the best players are going to be there. And now when you've got kids like Tavian St. Clair, who's one of the best quarterbacks that we've had in a long time, it's nice that he can kind of compete in a 7-on-7 environment and doesn't necessarily have to go to Florida or Texas or California to get those reps. And I think that's going to be big for Ohio's, just the state of Ohio's skill players going forward. So I'm excited about it. And like I said, if you get a chance to go to a 7-on-7 event near you, go do it. I guarantee you'll have a good time. They're an awful lot of fun.
Well, the interesting thing is Ohio has done more to impede the development of our skill guys than maybe any state in the country, and it's been crazy because we don't have spring football, which all the Southern schools have. We didn't have 7-on-7, and again, it might not seem like a lot, but when you add up all the reps you get from having, I don't know, 4 spring footballs, 5 spring footballs, because again, I don't know how 8th and 7th graders operate. I don't know if they have spring football or if they do anything, but that's 4 extra training camps essentially, where it's like, you get 2-3 weeks of good work in, that the Southern schools have all gotten. And, I know there's been a population shift to the South, but I think that them having spring football where, again, coaches get to come evaluate you. Coaches get to come check you out and see you ball out, and then you get offered. So that's a huge edge to be in a Southern school where in Ohio, the coaches, they come see you and you're just lifting weights. You're bench pressing and doing hand cleans and squats, which is great. But I think it's not as good as actually playing real football. But yeah, I love this. Again, these things are fun, and it's funny. It's really starting to take off because it's on ESPN now. It's on ESPN and NFL Network. Like I think this OT7 championship will be televised live, so check it out. It's always fun to watch. We have a couple of super chats, so we will get rolling into these. Ben G, thank you for the 20. Appreciate you, my friend. Is the platoon approach, and also thank you for being an Ultra member. Appreciate you, Ben. Is a platoon approach to running backs because of the talent now, or a new approach based on Chip/Laughlin's prior work? Do you expect OSU to keep Rex with that in mind, or go bell cow, Trey, Quinshawn? Once Trey and Quinshawn leave, love it. I hope it sticks. I think it's a little bit of both. I think that obviously when you have 2 first-round pick running backs, it's a lot easier to play a second one than if you have a precipitous drop-off from the first to the second one. But I do know Chip Kelly loves playing doing the 2 running back thing. And again, I sent Nevada a clip of the Rose Bowl versus Ohio State and some of the stuff Chip Kelly did when he had Ken John Balmer. And those guys had like Jonathan Stewart, Ken John Balmer, guys that could just fly. And they put them in the backfield at the same times, and they'd run misdirection. One guy got the ball, one guy didn't, and the linebackers have to have eye discipline to figure it out. And it is terrifying to try to defend. I mean, I'm just telling you, like when you've got 2 guys that are legit ball carriers, it's not like you have like a fullback or an H-back back there. Like you've got 2 guys that are first rounders back there. It's tough to go against, man. And I'm telling you, I think Chip's going to be licking his chops to get both those guys in the game at the same time with different formations, with misdirection, with read options. Like that stuff is so hard to go against, and I think it's going to be awesome to watch. But Nevada, what are your thoughts? Ben, again, he asks, is a platoon approach to running backs because of the talent, or a new approach based on what Chip and Carlos Laughlin's prior work has done? And do you expect OSU to keep Rex with that in mind, or go bell cow once Trey Quinshawn leave? Love it and hope it sticks.
Yeah, I mean, look, Chip's used this throughout his career. He loves the 2-back look. He loves what you can get out of it. I mean, obviously, it's not a primary formation for him. He's not going to use it, over 50% of the time. But you're going to see it a lot. You're going to see it, more so than we've seen in any time in recent history since maybe the mid '70s at Ohio State. And he just likes the flexibility that you get out of it. You just happen to have a situation right now where you've got, kind of an extreme talent situation with Trey Henderson and with Quinshawn. So I think people will focus on that. But no, I think this is going to be a staple of the Chip Kelly offense at Ohio State. Whenever he can, he's going to try to put those guys in there. And that's definitely going to go beyond 2024 when those guys are both balling out in the NFL. He'll still be running the 2-back looks because Chip likes that. And we're going to see that on full display this year with the OSU offense.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also another juice from Benji. Keep recruiting with that in mind. He accidentally changed that to Rexo. He said, "Do you expect OSU to keep recruiting with that in mind? The multiple running back look to go with the Bell Cal once training coach on leave." Yeah, I think so. I mean, we talked about them taking 3 running backs. Like I could totally see that because I think that running backs are. When we're on a heater recruiting running backs, like they should all be 3 and out guys. They should like none of there shouldn't be a running back that we take that isn't a 3 and out guy. And we had it with JK, we had it with Ezekiel. Trey's a different scenario. And again, maybe I need to rephrase it now because Trey easily could have been a 3 and out guy, but with NIL, it gives guys a little bit more. And plus, I think with the deficit in gold pants and rings, and the fact that the seniors haven't won anything yet, I think that makes them have a little bit more desire to stick around for another year. But I think that the recruiting is going to be a big uptick. You see how we're offering these kids. We see the kids that are jumping in the boat. I think it's going to be awesome. But I also think that if you just look at how football has kind of tilted in the last few years, because I love fantasy football as much as anything in the world. If you guys saw how in the olden days, like LaDainian Tomlinson would get 400 carries and he scored 30 touchdowns, and like those days are kind of done in the NFL. You see teams that have a good running back or good running rotations outside of like Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. Like you see a lot of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in the same backfield because the seasons are getting longer at all levels of football because the money is so great. So they keep adding more games and the games are harder. They're playoff games, they're regular season games in the NFL. So I think that teams are figuring out, hey, we better rotate these guys because otherwise they're going to die. You can't just have one guy and run him into the ground and then all of a sudden, he gets hurt and then, where are you at? So again, the Browns, like with Nick Chubb, suffering that horrific injury, like at least they had Kareem Hunt. They've had some guys that have been able to step in. And with Ohio State, I think that, we've been snake bit the last few years where we've been down to, Dallin Hayden and Chip Trainum. And, we haven't been at full strength at the end of the year because, Trey's been hurt. So I think having, these guys rotate will keep these guys healthier or fresher or whatever term we use. And I think, honestly, if I'm these guys, if I'm Ryan Day, man, and Carlos Loughlin, I'm saying, look, James Peoples, you got to get ready to go. Like, you can't be a freshman this year. You got to go play. And, that's the guy that, he's our number 3 guy right now. And I think he'll do great. And if there's a position where freshmen can come in and make big impacts, there's a position where they could make a big impact, it's the running back. And I think that it's going to be James Peoples is going to play a role this year, man. I mean, he can't think he's redshirting because, he's one ankle sprain away from being our number 2 back. And I think that's going to be it's going to be really interesting to see how much work he gets, especially early in the year when we're playing Akron or we're playing Western Michigan. Does he get 5 carries? Does he get 10 carries at the end of the game when we're up by 60 versus those teams, which we should be? So that'll be very interesting. Sloth Nations, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. Nevada, what do you make of Jim Phillips's comments today? He seemed kind of dumb with some of the stuff he said, in my opinion. Hope all is well. Nevada, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. I do not know what he said. I didn't even know who he was until 5 seconds ago because I looked him up. Did you hear any of the comments?
I don't know what the specific comments were, so it'd be helpful if I could see the specific comments to kind of.
I'm literally looking up right now. Okay, so 5 hours ago.
Because I've been following that pretty carefully, so that must be breaking news. That must be something.
There you go. Okay, so I found this on CBS. So this is why we have my little setup here, so I could find this stuff for me and you, because I did not know this one, and I tried not to get caught. But Jim Phillips bullish on the league, even with the futures of Florida State and Clemson up in the air. So this guy is absolutely crazy if he's bullish on the league. I'm always optimistic about a really good ending on a difficult situation. I'll never change until somebody else tells me differently. Am I going to fight and protect the ACA? Absolutely. I have to do that. That's my responsibility. So I'm guessing he's acting like, all is well. It's kind of like the meme where the little dog sitting in the middle of the kitchen and everything's on fire around him. We've got to do what's best for Florida State and look at the changing environment of college athletics and make sure we're there to be successful. Talks about being frustrated about the situation, but he's bullish on the future of the league, which I think that's probably what he's getting at. Not only is the conference facing lawsuits from Clemson and Florida State challenging its ironclad grant of rights, but the league is also facing questions about its lengthy television contract with ESPN that runs through 2036. Wow. Florida State claimed in the lawsuit filed in December that the ACC's deal with ESPN includes a unilateral option for the network that must be executed February 2025 to extend the deal. I mean, that's a 12-year extension. Wow. In essence, the ESPN could nix it and step away in 2027. Yeah, I mean that seems like a crazy to have that long term of a deal with ESPN, who's hemorrhaging money left and right. But yeah, he seems like he's pretty aloof. We have full distribution in our current states, in our current markets, and that was something that when I came 3.5 years ago, I heard angst about. We're not in all markets of where our schools are located, and we're not getting the revenue off of that when you're not in the market. So we've been in full distribution. That's the goal, to get into North California and into Dallas. Yeah, so when people, I mean, I know most people don't complain about the Big Ten, but this is not a Big Ten problem. The ACC is like, I mean, this is a joke, and I don't know how a commissioner could be feeling bullish on the league when he's when they're getting sued by basically the two best schools in the entire league from a football perspective. But your thoughts on that, Nevada? I think it's basically the commissioner being excited and bullish on the future of the ACC.
Well, again, you could change the name of that and put George Kolikov, the commissioner of the Pac-12, and he rode the optimism train all the way down to the basement floor and then into the abyss. So it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that Phillips is going to say that. I mean, he even kind of qualifies it by saying, I'll remain this way until I don't have reason to be. I mean, that sounds like a guy that's not optimistic to me. So it's hitting me exactly the opposite way. But they're in deep trouble. They're in deep trouble when you've got board of trustee members at University of North Carolina openly saying we need to move to a larger revenue conference, and that's on record right now. That's a problem because the deal at the ACC is probably $30 to $40 million a year less than what they'd get at the SEC or at the Big Ten. And that's a problem. And that's a problem for Florida State. That's a problem for Clemson. That's a problem for UNC. That's a problem for everybody in the ACC right now. And ultimately, that's going to be a problem for Jim Phillips, who's going to have to try to keep this thing together. But he's going to put on a happy face as long as he can. But go back and read the comments from the Pac-12 guy. Oh, we've made a commitment to each other. This thing's staying together. Oh, don't believe all those reports. This thing's going on. And people Nevada, you said USC's leaving, and I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, don't listen to what these guys are saying. Don't watch what they do, not what they say. And in this case, Phillips is literally being sued by two of his flagships. That's a problem and not a reason for optimism. That's for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the ACC is done, so it kind of is what it is at this point. Poohbeard12, thank you for being an Ultra member. Thank you for the deuce. The Bucks are playing at Northwestern at Wrigley Field, Nevada. Do you love it or hate it? Nevada OH.
I
don't know. I mean, how are you feeling about that one? Love it or hate it?
I love it. I love all that stuff. I love neutral site games. I love games in unique venues and locations. The only thing I don't love is the thought of moving games out of Ohio Stadium for any reason to go play anywhere else. And but if Northwestern wants to use one of the games on that, hey, more power to them. If Purdue wants to play a game at Lucas Oil, let's go for it. But I want all of our home games to be in the stadium, in the Horseshoe, regardless of weather, date, time, whatever. And ideally, they'd all be at night, while Bert Carton is tucked in his jammies, sleeping while because he doesn't like he wants his little noon games. But for the rest of us, I want us to be night owls, hanging up there, watching the game, getting all lubed up during the day, and then bringing it home with the big crowd on the night games. But no, I love the Wrigley Field idea. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Totally agree. Cavs, it's 31-28. It's 28-28 after the first, so the Cavs are fighting for at least now with a short rotation. So that's a good one. What else about it? Yeah, I think that the Wrigley Field game it'll be a fun novelty. Wrigley is awesome. Like I went when I was with the Bears. There was a really cool there's a really cool deal where the Bears really worked hard to have the rookies get used to the system. We took the train and we did all the stuff that like get downtown to Chicago. We went to the Wrigley Field thing. Um, I remember we got down there like 3 hours before the first pitch, and I was like, "What are we gonna do for 3 hours before the game starts?" Oh, we're gonna go in and watch batting practice, and I was like, "I don't want to do that." So I go to Wrigleyville and I'm walking around to Harry Carey's, and because again, like I was a young kid in Chicago, so it's like I'm trying to go see the scenes. It's a beautiful Saturday in the summer, and so summertime in Chicago is awesome, especially when you're a young kid, freshly graduated from college. So it was great. So I kind of went with a couple guys, and we went to a few of the bars just to see them, and they were awesome. It was live. People were excited. Loved it. So we were rolling through there. I got in like right before the first pitch. I got in like the fifth inning, I think. I mean, I stayed and watched. I didn't want to go to the game because like baseball to me is boring. But it was just awesome, and I think that it'll be cool seeing our fans tailgate in Wrigleyville before an Ohio State football game. Like I think that'll be completely awesome. I think it gives people more of a reason to make the trip because Evanston's kind of a sleepy, boring place to go to watch a game, but Wrigley Field will be cool. I think that'll be a nice selling point. I know that there's 800 million Chicago Buckeyes, like at McGee's, the one bar that's the Chicago Ohio State bar. It's funny because I talked to the owner of McGee's, and the owner of McGee's isn't an Ohio State fan because he has a Michigan bar too. But he's like, I just saw the opportunity where there's all these Ohio State people that want to watch a game, and when they score a touchdown, they play the fight song on the speakers and stuff. And I was like, that really is genius. You know that. And he could have been a nicer guy, but it was really cool. That was for the 13 Cal Berkeley game when Kenny Guyton played for Braxton and shredded those guys. So it was a fun day at McGee's. But I'm excited for our fans that haven't. I'm sure a lot of people have gone to Northwestern, but I don't know how many people have maybe not gone to Wrigley. But to go for an Ohio State game at Wrigley, I think it's going to be an amazing experience. It'll be fun for the players. I'm sure the surface will be fine by then. They'll be able to re-sod it because obviously baseball will be well past done by then for the Cubs. But it'll be really cool. Let's see. Did we get another super chat? Sloth Nations, thank you for the 10. Appreciate you. Who would you say in the past 10 years Nevada has been the biggest gem for OSU and the biggest bust for OSU? My pick would be Olave for gem, which isn't very original. Yeah, but I think that's probably the best pick. I mean, go look where he was in the recruiting class. Go sort by star ranking and average and overall. He's like the very bottom of the class. It's hilarious. He's a guy that they just kind of found, and he obviously turned into a first rounder, and he's going to be a $30 million a year receiver when he extends with the Saints in a year or so. Great kid, great person, dominating receiver. Just like a perfect player. Great find by Zach Smith. Zach, he was a freshman. Zach's his year with Haskins. So yeah, I think that's that's amazing. He's a freshman. When Zach he got canned in August, and then Heartline took over. But yeah, that was like one of Zach's last recruits. But that was a great recruit. Nevada, I'll let you go first. Biggest gem and biggest bust for OSU.
Wow. I mean, the biggest gem in the past. I mean, well, I mean, the biggest bust over the past 10 years for Ohio State. Well, I need some inspiration. I'm trying to think about who would be on the bus train. Who are candidates?
I mean, Kyle Dodson's at the top for me. I mean, he's a kid that was a 4-star, like Urban Meyer called him the crown jewel of the recruiting class in 2012.
But there's got to be 5-star. There's got to be 5. There's going to be more 5. I just don't have the recruiting things in front of me right now.
I mean, Curtis Grant is an easy one. I mean, Curtis Grant, who's a nice kid, great kid, had a nice career.
But he actually played. I mean, we've actually had 5-star kids that just haven't played at all.
Well, the kid that transferred to Nebraska, the cornerback. Tyreek Johnson or whatever his name was. I can't remember who he was, but he was like a 5-star kid. Couldn't play anywhere. I mean, Boston College didn't even take him with Halfley. So
yeah, no, he was pretty bad.
Yeah,
I mean Tate Martell.
I mean, could be.
I mean, Tate is a guy. Tate's such an interesting story to me because I will go to my grave believing that if Urban Meyer had stayed at Ohio State and that Tate had played in the right system, that he could have been a really, really good college quarterback. And I know that's a crazy position to take, given the fact that went on to Miami and sucked and did other things that sucked. But man, he was really good at Ohio State in practice, and when he was on the field, he did some really nice things. Um, I mean, he had Johnny Manziel type of ability, and people can say what they want about Johnny Football, when he got to the Browns and how he was exasperating at the NFL, but in college he was a force. I mean, he was a force of nature in college for sure. And I think a guy like that, in the Urban Meyer's offense, would have been unbelievable. Could have been unbelievable. And it was a sad story the way that thing turned out. I mean, he was just a mess. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Tate Martell would have been good at Ohio State if Meyer had stayed?
Well, I think it's like, he's like JT. Like, I mean, if JT, if Ryan Day showed up and JT was the quarterback there, then all of a sudden, is JT as viable as he was under Urban Meyer? No. Would Tim Tebow been the greatest college quarterback of all time under Ryan Day? No. I mean, not if he's not going to run him. If you don't run Tim Tebow, he's just a guy. Yeah, but when you run him, he turns into the greatest college quarterback of all time. So, again, and again, maybe that's crazy. Maybe that's a superlative, but I don't know. But I look at the whole picture, the whole shebang, and I'm just telling you, like, I think if Tate was in the right system with Urban, then it's a whole different ball of wax, man. But he just, I mean, he was a victim of poor choices and circumstances. And again, like, is it all his fault? Is it all whoever's circumstances fault? I don't know. But I've seen guys get caught up in the vortex. I've seen guys, because like when, like Ryan Mallett, for instance, was a kid that was at Michigan, 5-star superstar of a player. And Ryan, as soon as Rich Rod showed up, he was gone. If he would have stayed in Rich Rod's system, he would have never developed into an NFL quarterback like he was for a few years. So I think that's a position where you have to have the guy that believes in you, and you have to have the guy that's ready to rock and make you into what you're supposed to be. So I don't know. Like for me, I'm just I don't like banging on a guy when there's a coaching change and there's a scheme change and everything changes, because like if you had Dwayne Haskins, with like old school Urban Meyer who ran him all the time, it wouldn't be great. Or like again, a guy I always go back to is Tommy Frazier. Tommy Frazier in the mid '90s was a monster at Nebraska, but if he played for Ryan Day, he'd be fourth string because he couldn't throw, but he could run. So if you don't have a coach that accentuates your skill set, then it's going to be really hard to be great going forward. So that's just my opinion. And again,
hold on. Do you remember some of those practice reports that we'd get when Tate was out there, and they'd have the thing about where you had to touch the guy and they couldn't even touch him? Do you remember that? I do vividly, because I mean, he was electric. I don't think people have any idea how good he was. I know he's a meme, and he's kind of he's a punchline, and I get it, and don't strike out twice and all of. I mean, I've heard all the jokes, but I really think he could have been a good quarterback. And
I think Tate's problem is when you act the way he acted leading up into Ohio State, and he did that stupid quarterback show, which made him look like a douchebag. Like, none of that helps here. It's the same with Spencer Rattler. Like, Spencer Rattler, like, he did that quarterback show. He looked like the biggest moron of all time. And that hurt him in the NFL. That hurt him in the draft. That hurt him in combine interviews. People just didn't like the kid because he acted like a punk. And again, he's mic'd up. He says a bunch of dumb stuff to teammates. And, when you're a GM or you're a scout, you're going to watch all that stuff and say, well, is this real? Is this fake? Is he playing up to the cameras? Is this, I don't know. So I'm sitting there, and for me, man, I don't know. Like I don't like banging on kids. I don't like calling kids bus, but I mean, like Curtis Grant was a good player, but he was the number 2 player in the entire country behind Jadeveon Clowney. So I mean, like when you're the number 2 player, that's like a first rounder. That's a first rounder. That's a dominating player. Curtis is a good player, but was not a dominating player. So I don't know. It's one of those things where, like I had guys that didn't play at all and weren't real factors, but again, who knows? Like we'll see. In terms of guys who overperformed, I mean, I thought Taylor Decker overperformed, Elfline overperformed, Billy Price overperformed, Jacoby Bourne way overperformed as a starter on a national championship team. So, I don't know. I mean, those are some easy ones as offensive linemen. just because, we haven't had like the greatest rankings ever for offensive linemen, but I think, it's just one of those deals where you have a lot of really good suspects. And I'd love to hear in the chat or in the comments, who are some of the names that you would throw out? Because we've had guys like, JT Barrett was kind of an afterthought. He tore his ACL, showed up. Urban didn't really love him because he was hurt. If you show up to Ohio State after you had ACL surgery, like you're not going to be beloved if you can't do 6 a.m. workouts, that kind of thing. So I think you have to kind of see where those guys grow into and what system they're running. So.
I'd put Daryl Baldwin in there, man. Daryl Baldwin. There have been a few players that were less heralded, or there were people that were just openly just called like the worst, offer in the history of Ohio State football. And he turned out to be a starter on a national team, on a legendary on a line now that is considered, in the conversation of the pantheon of great offensive lines at Ohio State, and. He was a guy that people just absolutely despised, and I love stories like that. Those are my favorite. Those are my favorite recruiting stories ever. When people just completely write a kid off, and then he balls out and becomes legendary. That just cracks me up.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, Nevada, wrap this thing. Got any final thoughts?
No, just interesting day. A lot going on now with the the players back, or the Ryan Day back. It's kind of the end of the off season. It's kind of the end of what was kind of going on in terms of kind of waiting for these people to get back after this 3-week hiatus, and I'm excited to see. You don't think players can make big changes in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. You wouldn't. They can completely change. They can change body types. They can change speed. They can change strength. And we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see some kids that go from, afterthoughts to being big parts of the 2024 program. And I'm looking forward to seeing who those are going to be, and we'll let you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. With that being said, again, thank you guys for tuning in each and every night. We appreciate you guys. As always, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. We appreciate you guys each and every night. Bringing the heat in the super chats and in the chat. So thank you guys for all that you guys do. Again, we appreciate you guys. This is a huge episode because you guys made it one. So thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.